Liebe Zuhörende, liebe Zuschauende, liebe Mitlesende. Ich heiße Jochen Kienzler und ich bin blind. Aber vor allem habe ich wie viele Heidelbergerinnen und Heidelberger aus fast 160 Nationen mein Herz in irgendeiner Art und Weise in Heidelberg verloren. Und ich wünsche mir heute ein zuhörendes und sehendes Herz, frei von Missgunst und Zorn. Ich heiße meine Gäste herzlich willkommen. Lassen Sie uns gemeinsam überlegen, wie wir als eine Welt Rassismus entgegentreten können, und lassen Sie uns den Versuch unternehmen, Toleranz in alle Herzen aller Menschen zu pflanzen.
Hello, Jochen. So, I think that we've made great improvements against racism over the years. However, there is still a long way to go. My name is Shakira Dyer. I come from Tottenham, North London in the UK. It's a multicultural and multi-ethnic area with lots of different cultures. And I studied at the University of Heidelberg in Germany. However, sadly, there's still a lot of stigma attached to my area, and sometimes this stigma can even be racist. I wish to change this by giving black people in the UK and Germany a voice. If we make ourselves visible, we hope that change will come. Because Black Lives Matter.
Shakira, Dyer und Jochen Kienzler im Rahmen der Internationalen Wochen gegen Rassismus
Freuen uns jetzt, den Film zu präsentieren. Get Up, Stand Up, Speak Up. Now I'd like to present Kays, Moses and Sanja. Kays is a young filmmaker and head of his own film company, Co-Productions. He's recently made a film documentary series on discrimination, racism and self-expression in his university. Here's Kays to tell us more. Chapter 1. Kapitel 1. Kays. Struggle. Kämpfe. Kays hat schulterlanges Haar im Locks, ein kleines Bart und ein schwarzes T-Shirt.
Hi, my name's Kays Moses and Sanja. I'm 21 years old. I'm from North London, born and raised. I recently graduated from University of the Arts London during this pandemic. UAL, that's what we refer it to. My course was media communications, but I've always had a passion for filmmaking. So I usually handle the camera, I do the editing, I've written a couple of scripts as well. You know, location scouting, casting, producing, all of that in it. In fact, I've even started my own production company. It's called Productions or ProQ Productions. Say it however you like, I don't mind. Basically, it's a mix of the word ProQ, which is my childhood name, you know, professional case. And it's a mix of the word production as well. In my own free time, I've made my own projects. One of which I feel I'm most known for is the UAL documentary series.
Why did you decide to create your film series, UAL?
With UAL, what I'm trying to do is I'm kind of more or less calling out my university for what I feel biases that it has. So I'm kind of planning to do a trilogy. I've done the first episode so far, which is about class. I'm working on the second episode right now, which is based on racism, hence the title Race. But the thing is, race is such a big topic, I had to split into two parts. So I recently released part 1, currently working on part 2. I don't know, lockdown's been a bit mad, so I'm just trying to get it done. And hopefully once I finish part 2 of episode 2, episode 3 will be titled Self-Expression. it's not that I necessarily hate my university. I just feel that mine, like many others, at least from what I've heard from other students, particularly those of colour, working class background, is you expect university to be this place that cares about diversity, that's inclusive, that's tolerant, place where you can have loads of cultural exchange, be yourself and feel accepted. But I kind of feel that although universities do try to present themselves like that, and they are like making progress and steps in certain ways, I still feel more can be done. Like sometimes I don't feel that we're really valued, that we're listened to. I feel that students, even like sometimes faculty too, can get away with being, for example, very elitist, racist, and that behavior shouldn't be happening in somewhere where I feel people want to be safe, yeah, and to learn in a good environment. So here's a clip from the most recent episode.
This is Fortsmed, the secondary school that I went to. The thing is, it's in a really white middle class area. So being a young black man, I never really fit in that well. If there's anything I learned from secondary school, it's the fact that not only is it the government, social institutional racism is everywhere. It affects people of colour like me. It's what ruined my childhood. When I was passionate about things, I was seen as angry and aggressive. I was never really truly accepted. This is the place that made me in so many ways. There's so much pain and struggle that went to my adolescence being in this school. And I thought things would change going to UAL, but clearly they didn't. People of colour in every social institution, whether it's schools or like anywhere, we never fit in and we're never truly accepted.
This particular clip is from episode 2, Race, part 1. And it was me outside my secondary school called Fortismere. I went there for a good 7 years. I went to the sixth form as well. As I mentioned in the video, it's a very white middle class area. And as a young working class black man, I didn't really fit in. No, I know it seems like I'm saying the exact same thing, but that's literally how I felt. So the whole reason why I'm kind of exploring that part of my childhood and I'm making this particular episode a lot more personal than the first one and everything is because I kind of wanted to show a direct parallel between my experiences at secondary school and sixth form and then going to UAL for university and how like not a lot has changed.
What kinds of racism have you experienced in schools and universities?
There's many people of color who could really relate to that, you know. All these stories that you hear about young people of color not being treated well by their fellow students, even just like biases in curriculum, not learning about like other cultures. It's always predominantly like white British culture that we learn about. It's particularly black students are disciplined a lot more, and that's kind of that's not an environment you want to be in as a child. So that's what I went through. Like I said, I felt like I wasn't allowed to express myself, and when I did have valid grievances, I'd still be seen as angry black man, even though I was a black boy. I wasn't even 18 yet. So all of that happening to me, I thought, you know what, I could have a fresh start at university and, you know, I'll be with people who are a lot more mature and like I'll be doing what I love, which is, you know, making films and everything. There was still like a couple of hiccups, to put it nicely. Like I was going through the exact same thing, like at times students being openly racist, tutors being openly racist, like the curriculum not accommodating different cultures and students of color. It was like, I thought that our culture is kind of used as a prop at times. What I mean by that is kind of like when it comes to culture, my culture, for example, black culture, yeah, even though we've had to fight through various hurdles and everything and we're still discriminated even to this day, we've still kind of like contributed a lot to like, you know, mainstream British culture, American culture, you know, like within the Western world, for example, when you talk about music like hip hop, grime, dancehall, Afro beats, you know, films, dance, like our own paintings and drawings that highlight our experience, our very unique experience here. It's great that people from all cultures like love and appreciate our art. That's fine. What I don't like, at least especially within my university and many others, yeah, is people be kind of using that culture as a prop and saying I love this and I love that. But then the people who actually come from that culture never get to like benefit from their hard work and kind of have their voice.
When did you first become aware of the problem of race at your university?
I mean, it didn't happen straight away and it wasn't always blatant. I feel it got blatant more and more over the years, and especially now we're having conversations about Black Lives Matter, particularly after, you know, the senseless murder of George Floyd and everything. and a lot of students feeling that that their voices are no longer appreciated, and they don't feel like they're being treated equal. They feel like second-class citizens. I know it's a bit of a step that I kind of used an image of slavery in that clip that I just showed, but what I was kind of doing with that was I was highlighting how we feel dehumanized. Sometimes it doesn't have to be like a cop suffocating you to death or, you know, shooting you in the street. Like, sometimes it can be your best friends, it could be your tutors, it could be the places where you feel the most safe, even in some cases family members who look down on you, like they don't listen to you and they don't understand what you're saying, or they don't want to understand what you're saying because you're a different skin color. And, you know, sadly the majority rules, isn't it?
What kinds of passive racism have our students experienced?
Everything I just said, that's kind of how it was. It wasn't like people calling me racial slurs or nothing. It was just like some people would just look at me, laugh at me, particularly when I'm wearing like tracksuits and everything. And like, you know, I do use a lot of slang. I am a young person, but that is a part of Afro-Caribbean culture. Just, you know, even racially insensitive comments, they would never like call me the N-word or anything. They wouldn't go that far. They know not to. But could just be certain things about oh, Brexit, making derogatory comments about immigrants, or if you're highlighting like how you feel, saying I don't find that appropriate. People would say not everything's about race. I've been hearing that like nearly all my life. I'm 21 years old. I haven't been on this earth that long, so that tells you a lot. And it was kind of worse because I'd often only be like the only black person, or like the one of two black people, like one of like three people of color. Whether it's like living in halls, especially when you're living with people and they have that kind of mindset towards you because of factors that you can't control, such as your skin color. Not really much problems in my class or anything because we were a very diverse course and they were like very open of us, and we had a lot of diverse tutors in my course. I would be hearing horror stories about tutors using the N-word or making comments about somebody's lips just because they're black and stuff. That's not unique at UAL. Without saying it, there's kind of a us versus them. Like if you're not white or from like a rich background, sometimes people look at you a certain way or they make comments about you. I've had people try and like imitate my voice, or, you know, they put on kind of like very stereotypical voices and they come up to me and they expect me to talk like that, and I just find that very inappropriate. You know, I think it became more, clearer when I met more students of color, when I expanded like my horizon around the uni, and I finally realized that, oh wow, I'm not the only black person here, you know, because sometimes it did feel like that, or like the only person of color. There were a few isolating times and stuff, especially when you're socializing. I mean, I feel it's personally worse for the students because you see them all the time. You know, these are the people that you go to get a pint with, that you go to parties with, that you go to watch a movie with, and that you live with, innit? And it's worse in the sense that, you know, these people like me, born in the late 90s, early 2000s, you'd think that them being younger, they wouldn't have such outdated ideals, but sadly it happens quite a lot of people in our generation. But, you know, meeting other people of color is really good, but it was sad to hear that they went through the same stuff, even worse stuff as well, and just witnessing certain things like touching black people's hair. That's always made me uncomfortable.
And how do you deal with this passive discrimination?
But how have I dealt with it? I'd say like you know, I've kind of used like my trauma and my pain and my anger into my art. Like, instead of getting angry and arguing with people, like, I'm putting all of it into this documentary series, and I can't wait to honestly get it done and just to let it all out and kind of like showcase what's happening in these universities to kind of change people's perspectives. And these conversations may be uncomfortable, but they need to be had. And, you know, it's like I said earlier, when people of color like me, you know, black people, Asian people, whenever we talk about experiences or we say we find this offensive, or I don't like being talked to that way, or please don't touch my hair, you know, this isn't a petting zoo. The reaction's kind of like, not everything's about race, so why are you making a big thing out of this? Or people, like, they feel like they're being attacked, and that's not the case. It's just kind of like, how do you feel like having someone dehumanize you? Like I said, it's not always being murdered or someone shouting slurs at you. It's most of the time very passive aggressive, and the worst thing is like, this affects like all parts of society, you know, workplace, government, you know, social, like family. It makes me think of how like there's barely any black tutors at any of my campuses and stuff, like tutors of color. it's so bad that someone even spray painted at the CSM campus, you know, the UAL campus at King's Cross. Someone spray painted, there are hardly any black tutors in this school. The fact that someone had to spray paint that shows you how messed up it is. And then when you have like class often intersecting and stuff, like often particularly like when you're black and stuff, you don't necessarily always come from the richest families and everything. So going to union and loans and then having to pay off things is often harder for you. And not only just that, like once you graduate and everything and you're hoping to get a job in the industry, sadly you're far less likely to be hired and everything. You know, it's often people from white, middle class or rich backgrounds who get hired for these jobs and everything, and that's just very unfair. Whatever happened to you know, being rewarded for your hard work, you know, like there's loads of people who work hard, obviously regardless of color, but then why is the system built in a way that people of color, even when they do work hard and they go to university, which is considered a milestone, especially when you come from an immigrant family like mine. I'm a second generation immigrant. My family came here from Uganda for better opportunities. Me and my older sister, we both graduated university and everything. But why is it that it's like harder for us to find jobs, and like we have to go to websites where there's schemes that are built to particularly get people of color jobs? Obviously that's good, but the fact that these schemes need to even exist shows you that we're far from equal, you know.
In what ways do you feel the university is superficial in dealing with racism?
And yeah, sure, I did say that like my university and other universities do try to present themselves as inclusive and diverse, but there's a difference between presenting yourself as something and being that thing, you know. Like, okay, great, if somebody calls me the N-word, they'll get kicked out because obviously they deserve to be kicked out. That's intolerable. But if people are being passive aggressive around me, tutors are making like nasty, despicable comments. For example, the tutor that I mentioned who said the N-word in class casually and stuff, and he only got an absence of leave and he didn't even get fired, then that's how you know, like, that's a problem. People don't understand racism enough, or they don't even want to understand. Like it's, there's more to it, you know. The whole point of being tolerant and diversity and treating people of color equal is that you treat them equal. You don't make comments about them, you don't mock them, you don't look down at them. Or sure, they do my university, like they'll post like art from students of color, like, you know, creatives of color, graduates of color, like during Black History Month. But that's only 1 month, and then even with that month, they post it last minute. They'll make one post and they'll forget about it. So it's just kind of like we're an afterthought, and you don't want to be treated like an afterthought when you're meant to be a part of the community.
And what can our white allies do to help combat racism?
Obviously this is hundreds of years of oppression and discrimination, yeah, but I feel what needs to be done, if you genuinely do want to help and you like want to use like your privilege to like help other people of color and not be part of the problem, is listen to people of color. Like if you don't understand something, like a lot of us are actually really calm with explaining it all and having a like civilized conversation and looking over like comments that were made that shouldn't be made or were like problematic, as long as you're willing to learn and you're not going to make the same mistake again. Like we're willing to listen and have the conversation, and we're not going to be like angry or aggressive like many people see us as. And in terms of the curriculum, yeah, it's just like, I don't know, hiring more like tutors of color, having more people of color in the governing bodies, like you know, students and everything, listening to their demands and their needs and just treating them like people. And then, you know, there's a lot more to do, but at least that would be a step. But obviously, you know, it's not just like people of color who can enjoy this and who I'm targeting it to as well. Like, of course, I'd love, you know, white people to like kind of like hear, you know, a black perspective about things that they might not even often know about or fully understand, or, you know, would like to know about more in it. And I feel that it kind of breaks down barriers and builds bridges.
Lastly, with your filmmaking, what are your plans for the future?
While I do love talking about these topics, sometimes it can be very emotionally draining. That I want to kind of make short films more. I mean, of course, I'd love to make a short film on or like a film like on a topic like such as racism and stuff that needs to be talked about, like elitism and classism and everything. But I want to do something a bit more lighthearted, experiment more, become more experienced. Thank you so much for having me and highlighting a lot of the topics I've been speaking about.
And now we have an interview with Aisha Hasselbach. Aisha is Black German and she would like to talk about her experience with hair discrimination in Germany. Chapter 2, Kapitel 2. Aisha, listen, hör zu. Aisha Hasselbach trägt eine cremefarbige Kapuzenjacke und eine schwarze Jacke. Sie hat auch eine Nadelringe und hat heute ihr Haar glatt. Aisha, describe the problem of hair discrimination in Germany.
So hair discrimination in Germany, there's like different parts that kind of add to it, I'd say. For example, you, for the most part at least, can't find any hair products in a normal drugstore. So you can't just like be like, oh, I've run out of leave-in conditioner, let me just go to the drugstore real quick. You have to go to special stores or order stuff online. And then also it's really hard to find hairstylists that know how to deal with natural hair, or just with black hair in general. It's been getting better, but when I grew up there weren't any. So my mom had to comb my hair. And I mean, now there's more curly hair specialists, but with normal hairstylists, for the most part, you can't really go to them either because they won't know how to take care of your hair or how to even do it. And then also a big part is obviously just people treating you differently. People touching your hair and asking weird questions or making weird comments on it or just rude comments. And there's also just a lot of stigma around black hair, like that it's dirty and that we don't take care of it, that for example, because we don't wash it as often, it's gross or whatever. So that is just something you notice in the way, you know, people speak about it. Those are things I hear a lot. And it can affect people, including me, really negatively. Like when I grew up, I used to hate my hair, and it took me so long to get to a point where I was okay with it. And that shouldn't be, you know, it shouldn't be that way, because if you're white or if you just don't have black hair, that's not something you have to deal with. I mean, you might not like your hair and you might even hate it, but not because of the fact that, you know, it's black hair. It's not, you know, what society sees like fit, I guess.
What does your hairstyle mean to you?
For my hairstyle, I change it up all the time. So like now it's straightened, which I try not to do as often because I mean, obviously it's not that healthy, but I change it up so much. Like normally I have curls, just like a really big afro, and then I also wear a lot of protective styles, box braids, twists, whatever I want to try out. And obviously it's just a way of expressing myself and just like showing the way I feel at that moment. And then also it was a way to learn how to, or help me with learning how to accept my hair and how to be okay with it, because the more that I learned about it and the more stuff I tried, the easier it was to accept it and to see the beauty in it and the versatility, like all the different things I can do. It's so cool. And I'm so glad that I have this hair, but like it took me a while, and I guess taking care of my hair has just really helped that process.
How long has hair discrimination been a part of your life?
Hair discrimination has been something that always has been part of my life. You know, maybe when I was a little kid, I didn't notice it as much, but the older I got, the more obvious it got and the more it would bother me.
How do you help others against hair discrimination?
And the way I try to help people is just, you know, give them tips, tell them what worked for me, but you always got to consider that natural hair is just so different for every person. Everyone has a different hair type, and like not just because something works for me doesn't mean it works for anyone else. But I just try to help people, like with my sister. I try to help her find products, for example, or do her hair, and that's just how I try to help people. And just tell people that their hair is beautiful and that there's so much they can do, and that once they see that, it's just like a completely different experience. So that's how I try to help, because I feel like if I had someone like that when I was younger, that would have also helped. But I just grew up with a lot of white people around me, and them telling me that my hair wasn't, like, them telling me that my hair was, like, unruly and dirty. So, that also influenced how I perceived my hair and my appearance.
What does white privilege mean to you, and how do you deal with it?
So, white privilege. What white privilege means to me is basically the lack of discrimination based on your skin color. So it's not really like having something, it's more like not having something, which in that case is that discrimination. And I mean, it really affects every single part of everything. So, I mean, the whole hair discrimination thing, the whole not finding products, that's a part of it, because white is the standard in our society. So, that's what most parts of society do cater to, and everything else is just like seen as different, and but also obviously like getting attacked by people, whether that be verbally or actually physically, it's just, there's so many things, or like little remarks, and it affects every part of my life, and it will affect every part of my life for as long as I live.
And what bothers you the most about this type of discrimination?
And what bothers me the most about it is people trying to deny it and not seeing that it is a thing, but rather, because it doesn't affect them, they'll just be like, no, it doesn't exist. And that's something that I like have to face almost every day, and it's so exhausting to talk to these people and to like, because they'll try to discuss your lived experiences, and it just makes me really angry, because that's not their place. They don't have that right, and I don't want to discuss whether white privilege is real or not, because it is. And so it's just really exhausting, especially if you have to do it over and over again, especially when I was in school, because I went to school with a lot of white kids, and they just really believed that racism wasn't a thing in Germany, and then obviously they didn't believe that white privilege was a thing, and I just had to explain it over and over again. And I mean, some people did get it, and they did change the way they acted and like improved stuff, but other people just did not care, and they would be so offended every time I try to bring it up in any way.
So how do you deal with the racism that you face?
And the way I dealt with that or deal with it is just to allow myself to like feel whatever I feel in that moment, and to know that that is okay. Because like if I'm angry, then I'm allowed to be angry, and I'm allowed to express that. Or if I'm hurt, or if I'm, I don't know, if I'm pissed off, whatever, I'm allowed to feel all these things and to communicate them. And there's not like a right way to react to these things. And I don't have to always be okay with that, because that's what, growing up, I was told that I had to be okay with it, and that I had to, be quiet and not say anything. But I kind of realized or learned that it's not my job to make other people comfortable, especially when it comes to that stuff. It's not my job to make them feel better about the things they did or said. And all I can do is like express my feelings and the way I think about that. And the way they react is not my responsibility anymore. And it has nothing to do with me, but everything to do with them. And it just tells me the kind of person they are. So that's, I guess, the way I deal with it. I mean, there's also things like making music or making art that help me when I'm really stressed about it. But it just kind of depends on the situation and the day and the mood I'm in. But mostly just like, accepting my feelings and just not judging myself for feeling those things. And also setting boundaries. Because it's like racism and white privilege, that's a topic that I do, like, I'm really passionate about, so I talk about it a lot. But that doesn't mean that I always want to talk about it, and I don't have to, and I don't always have to explain stuff to people. I can just, there's Google, you can just look things up. So for me, it was really important to learn to just set those boundaries, and if I just don't want to, and I don't have to give them an explanation, and I don't want to, and I can just say that. And especially when it comes to discussions, there are certain things that I just will not discuss anymore. I will not discuss whether, my lived experience are valid or not, especially not with someone that has never experienced them, never will experience, like, any type of racial discrimination. I just will not discuss that. But it took me a while to get to that point. It's not really anyone's place to judge other people for the way they deal with that, because that is something that I hear a lot. Like, if they would have said it nicer, if you would have said it nicer, then maybe they would listen. But no, just deal with it however you want, and express yourself and your feelings however you want to.
What could society do better in regards to hair discrimination?
I mean, obviously include black hair into, like, just normal life, like sell the products at normal drugstores, and make natural hair a part of, like, the curriculum for hairstylists, so they have to learn it. But also just, sometimes, like, just don't touch people's hair. And don't even ask them, because you wouldn't ask a white person that, or just a non-black person, you wouldn't ask them that either. So why do you ask me? I mean, if you have genuine questions, you can always ask. Doesn't mean that the person has to answer them, but you can always ask. But if it's stuff like, oh, natural hair, black hair is so dirty, it's so disgusting, I don't even know why you would, like, say that. Even if you think it, just go look it up. It's one Google search or one YouTube video, and you will see that that's totally not the case. Educate yourself instead of just saying stuff without having any knowledge and any information, because that can, like, actually hurt people, and it might not be a big deal to you, and you'll forget it right after saying it, but that's not, the case for the people that you've said that to a lot of the time. So just being more understanding, being more educated. Same thing when it just comes to white privilege in general. Like, educate yourself. That'll make a huge difference, because then a lot of things that you might do now, you won't do them anymore once you know and understand what they do to the people you say them or do them to.
Now, I'd like to present Floyd Anderson. He's an information science lecturer and a Rastafarian, and he and his brother Robin Anderson will talk about the history of Rastafarianism and what it means for them. Chapter 3. Floyd. Spiritualism. Spiritualismus. Floyd Anderson hat langen Dreadlocks und trägt eine schwarze Jacke mit den Farben Rot, Gelb und Grün. Neben ihm steht Robin Anderson, der auch eine schwarze Jacke hat und einen schwarzen Schal. Er hat keine Dreadlocks.
Okay, greetings. This is the first take on a lecture about what I think about Rastafarianism. I'm joined by my brother. We will present our credentials a bit later on, maybe in another video. But right now we're just going to talk about two books. So the first book we're going to talk about This book here is called The Kebra Nagast, the Lost Bible of Rastafarian Wisdom and Faith from Ethiopia and Jamaica. This particular book, or this particular version, was written by Gerald Hassman. It's got an introduction from Ziggy Marley. So some of what we're going to talk about is in this book. Now, Kebra, the book of Kings, Nagast, Kebra, Nagast.
Yeah. Shalom everybody. So this is a book that I'm going to be talking slightly about. Not really talking about, drawing references from. So it's called Rasology Key Words, or the Keywords of Rasta. And it was written by a brother named Danija Tafari. And it's got Amharic in it and English translations. I believe the brother lived in Shashamani in Ethiopia. So that's a part of Ethiopia that they set apart for Rastas in the diaspora to come back. So I think the brother lives there and he wrote this book. So we're going to draw on these two books.
Yeah.
What does Rastafarianism mean to you?
Okay, so Rastafarianism. I'm a Rasta. Now, I don't usually express my feelings about a particular religion because I have a view of religion, which is religion is a cultural dimension or construct.
That's right.
Okay, so depending on where you are, your religion will reflect where you are.
That's
so
right.
if you're a Roman Catholic, you will be affiliated to the Roman order, or it originates from Rome, the Roman Catholic. Okay, you also have the Christians. So the Christians, they affiliate to a particular form of Judaism called Christianity. Okay, you have Islam, which comes from the Arabic regions of the earth, and they align themselves to the Islamic traditions. Okay, Rasta aligns itself to the Ethiopian orthodoxy of Christianity. Okay, so we're not going to get into the differences of Christianity and Hebrewism. We're not going to fit ourselves in these boxes, right? So what we're talking about here is we're talking about Rastafarianism as I see it.
Where does the word Rastafari come from?
So let us do an analysis of the word Rastafari. So Rastafari is two words, but actually three words. We can get three words from Rastafari. So the first word we're going to draw upon is the word Ras. So Ras means king, right? King. Tafari is another name, or the name that was given to Haile Selassie. So Rastafari means King Selassie. Now, we could spend a lot of time talking about the ins and outs and the significance of this person called Haile Selassie, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to take it as Rastafari means King Selassie. Now, the other word that we can get from Rastafari is Rasta. Okay, so we have Ras, which is one word. We have Tafari, which is a name. But we also have Rasta. Now, the first inference of Rasta comes from the 42 negative confessions.
That's right.
That was found in the papyri of Ani.
That's right.
Now, the fifth spell, because it's not a hymn, it was a spell. The fifth spell mentions the word Rasta. And Rasta was an order of priests. They were set apart. They were order of priests, and they were in charge of, as my brother says, in charge of enforcing righteousness, for want of a better word. Okay, so we have three words coming from Rastafari. We have Ras, we have Farai, and we have Rasta. Okay, now a lot of people see Rastafarianism as a religion that came out of Jamaica, but it didn't. It predates Jamaica. It predates it by many, many, many years.
What different types of Rastafarian are there?
Right. So as I said before, Rasta is found in Egypt.
That's right.
Rasta is also found in the Nyabingi order. The Nyabingi order of warriors from a place called, nowadays called Rwanda,
Uganda,
or you
Rwanda.
can call it Uganda. This region is where the Nyabingi order was operating their military operations. And the Nyabingi order is intrinsic within the struggles of Jamaica, because the first Maroons amongst them were Rastas. Okay, now we can corroborate this, but obviously time
constraints. Yeah.
Time constraints. I'm just saying what I feel. Okay, so we have in Jamaica, we have the Nyabingi order. In Jamaica, we also have the Rastas, and we have the Rastafaris. We also have the Bobo Shanti. So the Bobo Shanti is a form of Rasta. They tie their hair, so you never see their locks. They're very strict, very military organized. We also have the 12 tribes. Okay, so my brother is going to talk a bit about the tribe because he is an Israelite and a Hebrew Israelite.
I'm a Hebrew Israelite.
So he knows exactly about the tribes. So he's going to talk a little bit about the tribes, and I'm going to jump back in to finish off what I think Rastafari means.
Alright, so yeah, shalom. As a Hebrew Israelite, part of our studies is to recognize the people of the book. So how we recognize people of the book is not by appearances, because a person could look anyhow. We test the spirit, but in general, we figured out as a result of the spirit, as a result of study, and as a result of acknowledging history, we figured out where the tribes are located and who the tribes are. So for instance, like in general, the Jamaican people or the Caribbean island people, I don't like the word Caribbean, but I'm going to just use it colloquially. The Caribbean or the West Indian island people, they would be from the tribe of Banyamyan. Banyamyan would break itself down in English as Benjamin. So then in Puerto Rico, the Puerto Ricans would be from the tribe of Ephraim. The Cubans would be from the tribe of Manasseh. The island of Haiti / Dominican Republic, I think it's called Hispaniola together, that island, the Haitians would be known as the Levites or the priests, and on the other side, the Dominican Republic, they would be known as the Simeonites. And according to scripture, they would live together, but they would have a hatred for each other, which plays out. Then when you look at North America, when you look at the Seminole Indians, they would be Rawaban. When you look at the other Plain Indians, they would be Gad. So if you look at the Native American, the North American Indians, they look kind of like lions, and that's the description of them. They have a lion-like appearance. When you look at the Mexicans would be from the tribe of Issachar. In Hebrew, it would be Wasaka. And funnily enough, there's a small town in Mexico called Wasaka. So when you come down to Guatemala, the Guatemalans would be Zebulun or Zabalawan. So the prophecy, Guatemala to Panama, they would be Zabalawan. When you read the scriptures, they lined up with the scriptures that said they would be as Tyre and Sidon, which were two coastal cities. Then when you come further down to South America, you come to Argentina and Peru, they would be Naphtali. And then the other regions, which would be like Colombia, Venezuela, Guyana, Brazil, and bits of Trinidad, by the way, they would be Asher. So the tribe of Asher, in Hebrew, it means happy. And if you notice the characteristics of those same nations that just called, they're some of the happiest people in terms of, doesn't matter what's happening, doesn't matter what's going on, they're gonna party, they're gonna have fun, they have a spirit of mirth. Even in wake, when somebody's dead, it ends up like a party. So that's just a brief synopsis of the tribes from my perspective, which is a Hebrew Israelite perspective.
So, the meaning of Rasta is a complicated topic, okay? And we are coming from our personal interpretations. We're not taking a literal interpretation.
That's right.
But I want to start again from the beginning with the words Rastafari, right? Now I'm going to let my brother read the first five negative confessions taken from the papyri of Ani. This is a scroll. Now it's a bit small here, so you can't see the scroll, but it's an Egyptian scroll where the spells were written in hieroglyphics. This was translated by an English professor known as E.A. Wallace Budge. And this book was called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, as translated by Budge. Okay, it wasn't known as the Book of the Dead, but it's actually known as the Book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night.
Per M. Haru.
Yes, and for a better interpretation, I think we have the book here. It's up there somewhere.
Yeah.
But we have a book here called the what's the book by Benjamin Cannon?
Africa, the Mother of Civilization.
Yes, Africa, the Mother of Civilization. There's another book by
ISIS papers. No, that's not.
There's another book by Yosef Benjamin Cannon, right?
Yeah, I've got quite a few, but yeah,
we will refer to these books later on in our bibliography, so you'll get a detailed bibliography. But just for this section, I'm going to give this phone to my brother. He's going to just quickly read the first five negative confessions taken from the papyri of Anu. So if you can just read the first five. 1.
So this is number 1 in the list. Hail Usek Nemet, who cometh forth from Anu. I have not committed sin. Number 2. Hail Hepket, who cometh forth from Ker Aha. I have not committed robbery with violence. Number 3. Hail Fenty, who cometh forth from Kemenu. I have not stolen. Number 4. Hail Kaibit, who cometh forth from Quenet. I have not slain men and women. And number 5. Hail Neha Her, who cometh forth from Rasta. I have not stolen grain.
Okay, so those are the 5 of the 42 negative confessions, right? Now, the negative confessions of the papyri of Ani predates Christianity by at least 1,000 years, okay? We have just said to you, or you have just heard, that the word Rasta, which is here on the 5th prayer, as a name that represents an order of priests. Now, how do we confer this? So first of all, I'm going to read this again, but I'm going to take out the names. I have not committed sin, number 1. I have not committed robbery with violence, number 2. I have not stolen, 3. I have not slain men and women, 4. And number 5, I have not stolen grain. Okay, so I have not stolen grain is to represent I haven't stolen food.
That's right.
I haven't stolen food. So any food that the Rastas acquire is not stolen. So every one of these first 5, first of all, refers the name of the particular priest or order that you need to refer to. And then secondly, they said where they come from. So Hail Usket Namet, that's the name of the
priestly
attribute.
Order, or the attribute of the priestly
That's the name of the attribute. And then you say where they're from. Okay? So going back to number 5, Hail Naha He, who cometh forth from Rasta. Okay? So the papyri of Anai would have been dated thousands of years
literally
before Christianity. So although we practice the orthodox form of Christianity, the Rastas practice it. Rasta actually existed before. Okay, so we have to bear that in mind, because we can get put into boxes whereby we just put a thing in a box, we put another thing in another box, we put another thing in another box, and then we can't connect them. We can't connect them, so we don't see the connection between Islam and Judaism. We don't see that connection. Well, whether they're one and the same. We don't see the connection between Christianity and Judaism. We can't see the connection because it's in a separate box, but they're one and the same.
Absolutely.
We cannot see the connection between Roman Catholic and English Catholic. They're in separate boxes. So it's the same with Rasta. We cannot see the connection between Rasta and Christianity. We cannot see the connection between Rasta and Muslim. But in the in Africa, in the Islamic parts of Africa, there is a sect called the Baba Fay. And the Baba Fay are Muslim Rastas. So I'll say that again. The Baba Fay are Muslim Rastas. You can find them in Guinea-Bissau.
Yeah, you could find
them in the islands.
In certain key parts of West Africa, in predominantly the Muslim or the Islamic practicing parts of West Africa, you could find them. You will see images of them too.
And again, in our bibliography listing, we are going to show references to graphics where you can see that these things existed. You can see, if you go to the British Museum, or you go to the museum in Germany, or you go to the museum in France, the Louvre, yeah, you will see certain priests and certain priestess, and you see certain lords and princes and princesses, and they have locks, dreadlocks. Okay.
Do you have to have dreadlocks to be a Rasta?
Now, is it possible to be a Rasta without dreadlocks? Now, according to the scriptures, it's not possible, because the scriptures state that you do not cut your hair by the blade of a razor or by scissors or anything of that nature. You can't do that because it breaks the covenant, right?
That's right.
But if we take ourselves outside of the box, remember I said to you we could put ourselves in boxes. If we take ourselves outside the box, it's possible to find a person that practiced the tenets of Rasta and they do not have locks.
That's right.
Okay? In some songs, in Jamaican songs, you will hear they refer to them as the bald-headed Rasta. Okay? So what does it mean? It means that Rastafari or Rastafarianism does not necessitate you to have locks. Okay? It doesn't. And in my opinion, which is what we're basing this whole lecture on, in my opinion, to be a true Rasta, you do not have to have locks. Okay? If you do have locks, you are wearing the mark. you're displaying your affiliation. Okay? And it's an outward
Expression
affiliation.
of an inward spiritual or inward anointing.
It's an outward expression.
That's right.
Okay? It's an outward expression.
What are some stereotypes about Rastas, and where did they come from?
In this time frame that we have, which is 20 minutes, we cannot disclaim or disprove the public narrative of what a Rasta is, because everybody thinks that a Rasta is a person that smokes weed, a person that sells weed, or a person that's bad, or a person that goes around. But the reason why the whole concept of bad came into being is because we were the ones that fought the slavery colonial colonizers. We fought them because we said we are not having it.
That's right.
Okay?
We
are not having it. So the Rastas represent revolution. The Rastas, if you want to know what Rasta is, listen to Bob Marley. Listen to Bob Marley and you're going to feel the spiritual mission. If you listen to Bob Marley, you're going to feel the revolutionary feeling, the revolutionary spirit of the orders. So we're going to leave it there. We're going to add to this bibliography in an academic form. This was just us freestyling and just introducing the topic.
And bringing out the concepts
and bringing out the concept.
The relevant ones. Yeah.
Right, so we will end it there. Me and my brother with the discussion on Rastafari. Remember what I said? This is one book. This is called the Rastology Keywords. It's written in Amharic and English.
That's right.
And the other book, Kebra Nagas, the chronology of the kings of Ethiopia. By the way, these colors, the flag of Ethiopia is the Rasta colors, and the lion represents the Lion of Judah, which is a line.
It's a kingly and princely line.
Okay? We have to study our history.
To show thyself approved.
When we study our history, we will know where we come from, where we're going to.
That's right.
What's that?
Kwam Yashala.
Die Kamera fixiert auf eine brennende Kerze im schwarzen Raum. Die Sprecherin ist nicht zu sehen. Im Hintergrund ist ein Gemälde von Marielle Franco, eine schwarze brasilianische Politikerin und Aktivistin. Chapter 4. Sandra. Utopia. Utopie.
Racismus.
Racism.
Racismus.
Racism.
Racismus in Theater.
Racism in theatre.
Viele erkennen es nicht.
Many don't know it.
Sie merken es nicht.
They don't notice it.
Weil es sie nicht so trifft.
Because it doesn't affect them.
Der Rassismus auf der Bühne.
The racism on the stage.
Der Rassismus im System.
The racism in our system.
Verstecken tut sich von Publikum.
It hides itself from the public.
But wir Schauspieler sehen hinter den Vorhang.
We actors always look behind the curtain.
Schreit.
It screams.
Es ist nun mal so.
It is just so.
Und vergessen ist die Propaganda von Inklusion.
And forgotten is the propaganda of inclusion.
Wir bemerkt?
Are we noticed?
Werden wir gehört?
Are we listened to?
Nein.
No.
Nein.
No.
But ihr wollt von uns wissen.
You wanted to know about us.
Aber mich wollt ihr nicht hören.
But you don't want to hear from me.
So schön erzählst du von mir.
You tell everyone about me so beautifully.
Aber niemand hört von mir.
but no one hears from me.
Lasst eure Mauer fallen.
Let your walls
Die
fall.
Berliner Mauer ist gefallen.
The Berlin Wall has
Aber
fallen.
ihr habt eure eigene noch erhoben.
But you have put up your own walls.
Lasst sie fallen, damit ich nicht verwiesen werde.
Let them fall, so that I am not turned away.